Imagine being thrown out of the only place you called home, with no hope and no one to turn to. That was Amara's reality. Until one day, she met a billionaire who changed everything. But this isn't just a story of rescue. It's a tale of betrayal, shocking secrets, and a love no one saw coming. How did Amara go from a poor assistant to something much greater? In the quiet town of Ogudu, where secrets didn't last long, lived a young woman named Amara. She was an orphan, soft-spoken, kind-hearted, and hardworking. Her only possession? A job at a modest tailoring workshop, where she hemmed trousers, ironed agbadas, and folded fabrics for customers who barely acknowledged her presence. But for Amara, the workshop wasn't just a job. It was her home. A torn mat in a dusty corner was where she slept every night. A single spoon, cup, and plate, that was her life. Still, she was thankful. "At least I have somewhere to rest my head," she would whisper. One warm Monday morning, Amara was seated on her mat, eating a tiny bowl of soaked gari before work began. Her boss had just unlocked the shop when their first customer of the day arrived. A woman dressed in expensive Ankara, holding her car keys like a trophy. In a hurry to clean up, Amara grabbed a cup of water to rinse her face. But as she stepped out of the back room, she collided with the woman at the doorway. "Are you blind?" the woman snapped, staring at her stained dress now splashed with water. Amara's heart dropped. "Ow! Sorry, Ma. I didn't see you. Please, Ma, let me clean it." "Don't touch me," the woman shouted. "You dirty girl. Do you know how expensive this fabric is?" "I'm sorry, Ma," Amara whispered, head bowed. But the woman was furious. "This is who you people employ here? No manners. No training." Without warning, the woman stormed into the inner office. Amara stood still, her hands trembling. Moments later, she heard the harsh words. "Fire her. If this is your staff, I'm taking my business elsewhere. My husband buys his senator wares from here, and I'll make sure he stops too." Amara's boss, a middle-aged man named Mr. Cole, came out with a deep sigh. He avoided her eyes. "Amara," he said gently, "I'm sorry, but you'll have to go. I can't afford to lose her. Her husband is one of my best customers." "No, sir. Please." Amara fell to her knees. "I've got nowhere else to go. This is my only shelter. Please." Mr. Cole looked at her with pity, but he shook his head. "My hands are tied." The woman stood behind him, grinning. "That'll teach you to watch where you're going." As she left, Amara collapsed to the floor, tears running down her cheeks. Her only home, gone. That evening, with just a nylon bag of folded clothes, Amara walked the streets aimlessly. The sun had disappeared behind the rooftops, and the town had grown quiet. She felt invisible. Then she noticed a half-completed building near the market square. No doors, no windows, but at least it had a floor. Amara crept in quietly, laid her bag down on the concrete, and wrapped herself in her old wrapper. "God, please don't forget me," she whispered. At dawn, voices startled her awake. A group of men in helmets and safety vests entered the building, construction workers. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" one asked, surprised but not angry. Amara stood quickly, hands trembling. "Please, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I lost my job yesterday. I'm just looking for a place to rest. I can work. Please, let me help with the building. Anything." The men exchanged glances. One of them chuckled. "This job is hard. Oh, carrying blocks, mixing cement. It's not for a woman." "I can do it," she said firmly. "Please, just give me a chance." They hesitated. Then one man said, "The site manager will be here soon. If he agrees, you can join us." Amara bowed quickly. "Thank you, sir." Would this be a fresh start? Or another disappointment? She had no idea what was coming. But what she didn't know was, the man coming to inspect the site wasn't just a manager. He was a billionaire, the owner of the entire estate project. And her life was about to change. Forever. Amara sat quietly in a corner of the building, her back pressed against the rough wall, watching as the workers began their tasks. The thick smell of cement filled the air, mixing with dust and sweat. Hammers clanked, wheelbarrows rolled, and orders were shouted. For the first time in days, Amara felt a flicker of hope. About an hour later, a tall man in a white shirt, dark jeans, and heavy safety boots walked into the building. His steps were firm, his face unreadable. He looked like a man who didn't entertain nonsense. The workers immediately paused and gathered around him. "Good afternoon, Chief," they greeted respectfully. He was no ordinary visitor. This was Mr. Chaka Majuk, the head engineer and project manager. The workers quickly explained Amara's situation. Mr. Chaka turned to her. His sharp eyes scanned her from head to toe. "So, you want to work here?" he asked, his voice deep and steady. Amara rose to her feet, brushing dust from her wrapper. "Yes, sir. I don't have a home anymore, and I need to survive. I'll do my best, sir." Mr. Chaka raised a brow. "This is not a place for sympathy. If you can't handle the work, you leave immediately. Do you understand me?" "I understand, sir," she said, trying to steady her voice. He stared at her a moment longer, then finally said, "Fine. You start tomorrow. Be on site by 6 a.m. Amara bowed slightly. "Thank you, sir. God bless you." As the men returned to their tasks, Amara sank back into her corner, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. But this time, they weren't tears of despair, they were tears of hope. The next morning, Amara was at the site before sunrise. The sun climbed quickly, and with it came the heat and pressure of real work. She fetched water, mixed cement with sand, carried heavy blocks on her head, and swept debris from the floor. Her arms trembled. Her legs wobbled. Her back ached. But she refused to stop. The workers watched in disbelief. This girl strong one of them muttered. "See as she day outwork even Musa and Ifini," another said with a chuckle. Amara ignored the whispers. She knew why she was here. This wasn't just a job. It was her only shot at survival. A week passed. Then, one afternoon, the real owner of the entire estate project arrived, Mr. Ifini. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a quiet, calculating man whose name opened doors in real estate, oil, and media across Nigeria. Most people never saw him in person, only his initials on company signs, i.e. Group. On this particular day, Mr. Ease stepped onto the site in navy trousers, a crisp linen shirt, and designer loafers. The air shifted. He walked slowly around the building, inspecting the walls and checking materials. Then, something unusual caught his attention. In the far corner of the site, a girl in a torn wrapper and worn-out slippers was carrying heavy blocks. Her arms were covered in dust. Her hair was tucked under a faded scarf. Sweat soaked through her clothes, but she didn't stop. "Who is that?" Mr. Ease asked, frowning as he turned to the site engineer. The engineer hesitated. Sir. Her name is Amara." "Amara?" Mr. Ease repeated, still watching her. "Yes, sir. She's been working here for a week now. She came here with nothing. Said she lost her job and had nowhere to go. We were reluctant at first, but she's surprisingly strong and extremely hardworking. Never complains." Mr. Ease narrowed his eyes. This is not the kind of job a girl like that should be doing. He paused, then added, "Call her here." The engineer nodded. "Yes, sir." He turned toward the workers. "Amara, come here." Amara, startled, dropped the block she was carrying and wiped her dusty hands on her wrapper. Her heart pounded as she walked nervously toward the man everyone seemed to fear and respect. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes on the ground. "Good afternoon, sir," she greeted, her voice low. Mr. Ease didn't speak immediately. He studied her. There was something unusual about her. A certain strength. A quiet dignity hidden beneath all that dust and exhaustion. "What's your name again?" he asked. "Amara, sir." "How old are you?" 23, sir." "You work here?" Carrying blocks. Yes, sir. I begged the site manager to let me work. I had nowhere else to go. He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Where are your parents?" Amara swallowed hard. "They died when I was a child. I grew up in a church orphanage. I had a laundry job in town, but I lost it. I've been on my own since." Mr. Ease folded his arms, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to the engineer. "She's not doing this anymore." The engineer blinked. "Sir, take her off block duty. Find her something else. Cleaning, errands, anything, but she's not lifting a single block again." "Yes, sir. And one more thing," he added. "I want her name on my private staff list. She'll be assigned to my Lekki residence starting next week." Amara gasped. "Sir." Mr. Ease turned to her. "That's not an offer, Amara. It's an instruction." And with that, he walked away. Amara stood in front of the grand black gates a week later, her heart thudding. The compound was massive, trimmed hedges, sparkling fountains, and marble floors that gleamed like glass. She wore a simple green gown and her only pair of clean shoes, still unsure if this was all a dream. The housekeeper, Madame Elsie, welcomed her with a brief nod. "You're lucky, girl," she muttered, her eyes scanning Amara from head to toe. "Nobody just walks into Mr. E's house like that. Just don't mess up." "I won't, Ma," Amara said quickly. She was assigned to light housekeeping duties and personal errands. But there was one strange rule: never enter the east wing of the mansion. That part of the house was always locked, always quiet, like a secret waiting to be discovered. Over the next few weeks, Amara worked with quiet excellence. Mr. Ease noticed. He began calling her for small tasks, bringing files, organizing books, preparing his tea just the way he liked it. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. She found him in the garden, sitting alone, staring into space. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked softly. He looked up. "You remind me of someone." "Sir?" "My late sister. Her name was Amara too." Amara blinked. "She died in a fire. 10 years ago," he said quietly. "You have the same eyes, the same stubborn spirit." Silence hung between them. "Life is strange," he added, then stood up and walked away. One rainy afternoon, as Amara dusted the shelves in the mansion's private library, a small yellowed envelope fell from a book. It was unsealed. Curious, she glanced around, then opened it. It was a letter addressed to Ifini Ease. From a woman named Kelechi. The name stirred something in Amara's memory. The letter read, "I didn't want to keep it from you, but I was scared. When I left, I was already 2 months pregnant. I named her Amara, after your sister. She deserves to know who her father is, even if I'm no longer here." Amara dropped the letter. Her head spun. Kelechi. That was her mother's name. And Ifini, he's my father? Amara's hands trembled as she held the letter. Her whole world began to tilt. Everything suddenly made sense. Her mother's whispered prayers, the sadness in her eyes, the night she died of sickness and refused to speak of the past. All this time, she had grown up thinking she was completely alone. But the man whose mansion she now cleaned, the billionaire everyone feared and respected, was her father? She folded the letter back carefully and slid it into her pocket. That night, sleep refused to come. Her mind raced. Should she confront him? Would he believe her? What if he sent her away? 2 days later, she found the courage. Mr. Ease was in his study. Books lined the walls, the scent of old paper and cologne filled the air. He sat behind his large mahogany desk, scribbling into a file. "Sir," she said gently. He looked up. "Yes." She stepped forward, her voice shaking. "I found a letter, sir. From Kelechi." The moment the name left her lips, his eyes froze. She continued, "She was my mother. The letter said, 'You are my father.'" The room went cold. Mr. Ease stood slowly, his expression unreadable. "You found the letter. Way." "In the library, sir." I wasn't snooping. It just fell. He moved toward the window, staring into the dark clouds above. After a long silence, he spoke. I knew Kelechi deeply, but she disappeared. I searched for years. Hired detectives. No trace. I thought she moved on, or didn't want me in her life. She died, Amara whispered. 2 years ago. She told me nothing. Just that she loved me. She worked so hard. She was sick for a long time. He turned around, his face now softer, pained. You're my daughter. She nodded, eyes glistening. He stepped closer, slowly, then stopped a foot from her. I've looked at you for weeks. Wondered why your presence disturbed me. Why I couldn't ignore you like I do most people. Amara, my sister's name. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't know. I swear, she said. He didn't say a word. Instead, he opened his arms and drew her into them. She broke down completely. Not everyone was happy. One evening, as Amara walked into the kitchen, she overheard hushed voices. Madame Elsie and a man in a grey suit. She's getting too close, Elsie hissed. If she stays, we'll be finished. Relax, the man replied. Once the boss confirms she's his daughter, that changes everything. No inheritance. No control for us. Amara stepped back in shock. Madame Elsie, the housekeeper, had been blocking her from the beginning. But why? Later that night, Amara searched the guest quarters where Elsie sometimes slept. There she found it, tucked inside a file. Forged birth records. Letters from a lawyer threatening Kelechi. And most shocking, proof that Madame Elsie had been intercepting letters between Kelechi and Mr. Ease for years. They had kept them apart. The next morning, Amara handed the documents to her father. He read every page. His eyes grew darker with each one. By the end, his hands shook with rage. She was working for me, and plotting behind my back, he growled. Within hours, Madame Elsie was fired and escorted out by security. But that wasn't the end. Mr. Ease called for a family meeting, including his greedy siblings and distant cousins who had long eyed his fortune. He stood before them, Amara by his side. This is my daughter, he announced firmly. Her name will be added to all family records. Anyone who challenges this will deal with me personally. The room fell silent. Some faces turned pale. Others burned with fake smiles. But no one dared speak. Amara stood beside her father, not as a maid, not as a stranger, but as Amara Ease, the daughter they all tried to erase.